The first, which my newsletter on Monday will be about, is green conservatism. I want to be very clear about this concept. I taught the second Earth Day. I was a coordinator of environmental studies. Ronald Reagan issued a positive statement on the first Earth Day. The environment is not inherently a liberal issue. Virtually every American would like to see biodiversity. Virtually every American would like to see clean air. Virtually every American would like to make sure that we do not have unnecessary climate change, recognizing that the climate changes all the time, the natural biological rhythm or natural organic geological rhythm. Having said that, what happened to the environmentalism is that the hard left took it over, so that the environmentalism became an excuse for hysteria, it became an excuse for big government, it became an excuse for regulation, and then conservatives said, well, I'm against that. That then got translated into, well, then you're against the environment. And nobody stood up and said, wait a second, we need to have a fundamental, alternative, better solution. Let me give you an example, which you are aware of because of 3 Mile Island, right here. In 1979, the left made a movie which was about as intellectually honest as Gore's recent movie. It had Jane Fonda in it, which told you almost all you needed to know. And it was called The China Syndrome. And it's just fundamentally false. It's a lie. But the combination of 3 Mile Island and the China Syndrome all of a sudden led to an end to developing nuclear power in the United States. Now, let me give you the numbers. When you go back home and you run into your left-wing friends who are really desperately worried about carbon, and they really worry about Kyoto, and they think that there are going to be 20 feet of ocean next Tuesday, and the penguins are going to be walking on sand, and oh my God, why don't we do something? And of course, whatever the something is means more government and bigger power. Give them the following number. It'll drive them crazy. If the United States had developed nuclear power at the same level as France for electricity production, we would this year put 2,200,000,000 tons less carbon in the atmosphere, and we would be 15% better than the Kyoto requirements. Now, of course, they'll probably tell you, well, you can't do that. You say, okay, tell me again how important Kyoto is. I'll tell you again, once again, how important it is we do something now. To show you how stupid the left is. And I mean that word deliberately, because you watch these people and you try to figure out, how do they make these things up? Gore testified recently that he wants to have no new coal-burning plants until we have the perfect coal-burning plant. This is after a man who wrote in Earth and the Balance that the greatest threat to the human race in the 20th century was the internal combustion engine, which meant that he had managed to somehow skip Stalin, Hitler, and Mao Zedong. Not an easy trick for somebody who was actually going to a very successful private school, but he did. Here's the fact. A new coal-burning plant produces 25% more electricity for the same amount of carbon. So if Gore was serious about reducing carbon, he would actually be offering a tax credit to modernize all of the current coal plants into a next-generation coal plant, and he would immediately get a 25% reduction in carbon per unit, per megawatt of electricity, which is, by the way, more than Dianne Feinstein hopes to get by 2040. And he would do it without any government coercion, without any litigation, without any regulation. He would do it because it would just make economic sense to do it. So I believe we can create a green conservatism based on science, based on incentives, based on tax credits, and I think we can actually do a better job than the left because their bureaucracies inherently can't deliver. Superfund spends a third of its money on regulation and litigation. That money ought to be spent on engineers and recovery, and that's we can offer a better model. So I just want to urge you, don't back off on this. Be prepared to go into the Philadelphia suburbs and say to the most passionately interested environmentalists, terrific values, here's a better way to get there. And we will suddenly have a new dialogue in America. The last